Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day and above all else that you're indeed looking after yourselves. And again, unlike us, are not dealing with allergies and colds of various degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the topic of again another fantastic episode, I want to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
Uh,
Victim of allergies, ladies and gentlemen. He's fine.
the-
And the one and only Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
It's going fine. Looking forward to these albums from when I was 7 years old. Just a wee
wow,
lad.
you're that old?
I'm that old.
Great segue.
Dude.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about album anniversaries, shall we? In particular, 60th album anniversaries. We have a short list to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. Two albums that are celebrating their 60th anniversary, released in 1965. Um, Now, unfortunately, I'm going to be hosting this segment. I was not able to listen to these albums and give them proper attention. Uh, Time ran out for me on the clock. So, again, I'm going to be doing the hosting duties. The first album that we have on the list today was released in June 1965. We have the debut release of The Yardbirds, For Your Love, recorded in from March of 64 uh, to according to my notes, I could be wrong, from March of 64 to April of 65. Released through Epic Records, uh, produced by Giorgio Gomelsky, with a playing time of 31 minutes and 4 seconds. How precise, yes.
Tight.
Featuring the single For Your Love. Um, but again, that's the only thing I know about the album, ladies and gentlemen. I will pass the virtual mic over to the irreplaceable Jim Bricker.
Oh dear.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
Oh,
all
yes.
right. Let's so boy, this album has a lot of weight to it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Um, this is the material that made Eric Clapton leave the Yardbirds, and it is the material that ushered in the talented Mr. Beck afterwards. Um, and it kind of kicks right. This album, if I understand correctly, and Ken, you know more about this than I do. This album is really kind of a compilation of a lot of singles and maybe some EPs that were done in Great Britain at the time, and so this release kind of collects it as an album. Um, and that's why you get such the long recording dates on here from 64 through 65. Starts out right out of the gate with For Your Love, which is the classic, everyone knows it, A plus plus plus. Yes, Eric Clapton plays guitar on it, but you almost wouldn't know because other than the dun, 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 in the bridge, you don't really get a lot of guitar on this album. It's mostly synth and bongos, or organ and bongos. Um, and there's a lot of this album that was released as part of the Crossroads box set, and so you get kind of the high points of Clapton's early career, from kind of already represented as part of Crossroads. If you've heard it, Got to Hurry is on there. I Wish I Could, A Certain Girl, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, and of course For Your Love is on there. It's hard to talk about this album because it's just such a blueprint for British blues rock, and I think Ken's got a lot more, I'll say, passion and experience about this album. So the it's a really fun listen, and it's got a lot of energy to it. And boy, is it interesting to kind of hear Beck contrasted with Clapton and his playing, because Beck is just he's already kind of up here, and Clapton's kind of down here somewhere in terms of the skills and the energy that he's bringing to things. Clapton, of course, would continue to evolve, and throughout Cream and into Derek and the Dominoes, he just becomes a titan. Um, the real interesting track on here for me is a Jeff Beck track. And this is the second one that's on the album. It's called I'm Not Talking, which is a cover of a Mose Allison tune. And I was just kind of so taken by it with its kind of jarring rhythms and stop times that were in it. I'm like, I gotta try and check out the original here. And I checked it out, and um, it's not as high energy. B, it's piano based as opposed to guitar based, but yet all of the structural elements of the stop times and kind of the weird time signatures and shifts that are going on, they're all present in the original. So really what the Yardbirds are doing is just taking this whole thing and amping it up a notch. So it's not like they're getting creative with the arrangements aside from having electric guitar be the feature. Um, it's just was really fascinating for me to go back and kind of compare and contrast what Mose Allison was doing in the original to this one. Um, this album for being 60 years old does pretty well. I mean, it holds up really strongly today. I mean, clearly there's, proto blues on here, and there's a little bit of, Neolithic rock going on if you want, but it's I'd put this head and shoulders right up against anything that's produced in the 2020s as far as rock and blues goes. It's a fantastic record.
Okay. All right. Ken.
Yeah, the Yardbirds are, except for fans, are really kind of slipped the notice when it comes to British invasion of the 60s. Um,
Yeah, I get that.
and whereas for a lot of groups, like Jim says, this is basically a compilation album. This was not gone into the studio and record, 11 tracks for an album. That's not the way this was put together. And under most other circumstances, this would be a weakness. But in this case, I think it's a strength. Back in the 60s, because we're talking Yardbirds basically, there was the record industry back then in Britain. You had singles and you had albums.
Yeah.
And for up until 69, 70, the two didn't cross over, which is why in the US, the Beatle albums, the early Beatle albums, have a
Yeah.
different track running because um, the 45s that the Beatles released were not put on British Beatle albums. However, in
EPs
the
as well.
US,
Yeah,
because
we
they,
were
'cause they considered that as, double dipping.
we talked about that prior to taping, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
A very lively conversation about that, and it was
Yeah.
spearheaded by me. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah. That's why there are two Beatle albums that there is no British version of because basically they just took the 45s and made another album out of it or whatever.
Oh,
And this is the
yeah,
case. The
yeah.
record company um, with this For Your Love was quite a good success. And so therefore, in order to push that song even more, it's like, okay, there's not an album for this song, so let's take all these things and create one because this is an American album. This isn't a British album. So yeah, and it's so for the group as a whole, it's a transitional album going from the Clapton years going into the Beck years because Clapton left 4 months prior to this album's release, and
Okay.
so it's got the first example of the Beck recordings because Clapton left because he didn't. The band wanted to go in more of a pop direction, and he wanted to stick with blues. Wanted to stick with blues
Yeah,
rock,
yeah.
and so he says, "Well, I'm not interested in the pop stuff, so I'm out of here."
Okay. Yeah.
And so, "For Your Love" was, he did play on it, but I think that might have been one of the songs that might have convinced him that, the direction of the band wasn't for him. But it's an iconic album because, like Jim says, The strength of this album is because the songs are basically handpicked,
Yeah.
singles and some B-sides that were very strong.
Yeah.
Um, and the title song is just absolutely iconic for 60s. It's very, very influential. It's hard to find any playlist for 60s um, on any of the streaming services that don't have this song on there.
Mhm.
And I love it. I love this combination of blues rock pop. And yeah, so Jim, I really don't have a lot to add to what you said. You nailed it pretty well. Um,
Okay.
so and yeah, and then in the U.S., it's as far as albums is concerned, it's considered their debut album,
Yeah.
and I think it's a treasure.
Okay. Just a little footnote back to the Beatles conversation about
Mhm.
the track listings being different from North America to um, the UK and Europe. As a kid, just very quickly, as a kid, I remember seeing a copy of Rubber Soul, and the lead off track on side one was "I've Just Seen a Face."
Mhm.
I've always loved that song.
Yep.
I thought, and then when I heard that the UK version was different in the track listing, I'm like, that's not right. It's not. So
Yeah.
I have the Beatles box set of their
Yep.
albums in the
Yep.
basement. I'm gonna get Bob to go down and check and see
Yeah.
what track listing they go by. Okay.
Well, in the 80s, when they finally released the Beatles on CD,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was the UK versions. And I was playing in a band, and the other guitar player, had all the Columbia albums when he was growing up, and he absolutely hated the CDs because it wasn't, you know, what he grew up on. So
I
he
got you.
absolutely refused to buy the CDs.
I got you. I got you.
But I get it.
Wow.
I get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Tangents aside, ladies and gentlemen, we must continue.
Yeah, we never do that here. So.
I know. No,
No, no. Straight as an arrow.
it's such a foreign concept. All right. Our last album on the list, and we decided to shorten this list up because there was only one album released for this month of 1965 in July of 1965. It's from the Ramsey Lewis Trio called The In Crowd, recorded from May 13th to May 15th, 1965. That's how you do it. Go in, record it, get the hell out. Released on
Right.
the Argo label with a playing time of 32 minutes and 9 seconds. How precise. Album was produced by Esmond Edwards. So, who shall I pick on first? Jim,
No, don't pick on me. I just wanted to throw in an additional point,
go
if I
ahead.
may.
Well,
There is an exp isn't it? There is an expanded version of this, which is available on all the streaming services, and even in its expanded form, it's only 39 minutes. And as we'll get into, I think the 39-minute version is the version of the in crowd that one must hear.
because the original version only has 7 songs on it. So yes, okay, Jim, seeing as how you put your
No,
hand up,
I don't want to go first. I went first last time.
you're being insubordinate. Come on.
All right, okay.
Go ahead.
Um, Ken, if I steal your thunder and take the words out of your mouth, I'm sorry, brother.
Okay.
Um, so this is, I suppose traditionally you would find this in the jazz section, but really this is soul, blues, swing, gospel, jazz. I mean, about the only thing it isn't is like rock and flamenco. This album is just really deep in and drenched in blues and soul. Um, this is a live album, and the thing that really kicks this up a notch is that there's a boisterous and involved crowd that really is charging the band and really enhances the performance. And it's just this wonderful romp of an album. And I know of people to whom live albums are just like, they're horrible because you get the crowd. And I've not really been one to sort of take that opinion, because to me, it's part of the magic of good live albums is that the crowd is affecting the musicians, and it just sort of becomes this joyous circle of each influencing the other and just taking the performances up another stage. And really, that's what the in crowd as an album is all about to me. Now, having said that, there's all kinds of different playing on here that's just like the in crowd is just almost 6 minutes of just swinging soul. It's just an amazing tune. There's ballads that have this just deep soulfulness to them. I mean, Ramsey Lewis is not kidding around. Um, Tennessee Waltz, and I'm talking about the 39-minute version here, is basically a bass solo tune with band accompaniment that is just, uh, it's a treasure to hear. Um, You've Been Talking About Me, Baby is, really a standard blues, but then it kind of turns the soul crank and really just kind of takes things to another level. The love theme from Spartacus, which had kind of become a jazz standard by then, really starts off in kind of a standard format, almost Bill Evans-ish here and there. But then it kicks into the soul, and it's just like, oh, it's so good. Um, the next tune, which is a Antonio Carlos Jobim tune, it almost takes the Latin out of it. I mean, Ramsey is just leaning into the soul of this very hard. And again, you wouldn't think it was a Latin jazz type of tune at all. Um, then we get to the two tracks that to me make this album just a pearl of absolute beauty. Um, Motherless Child is a piano solo that is just so moving, and Ramsey just drenches this in sorrow and loss, and this thing is
Dripping.
dripping with blues. I mean, it's just so magnificent. And then it segues just effortlessly into the Duke Ellington tune "Come Sunday,"
Mhm.
and it kind of takes all the sorrow of blues, takes it to church, and it's redemptive, it's hopeful, it's peaceful. Again, mostly piano solo. I believe the drums and bass do come in at the end a bit, but yeah, to me, those two tunes together are should kind of be like part of any album of introduction to why jazz is just so freaking astounding. I think these two tunes together need to be part of that conversation because they're just so beautifully done and really make the case for jazz being this kind of um, amalgamation of all different types of music. The blues, spirituals, um, and of course Ellington, very well versed in that. Motherless Child, I don't know the origin of that, but I'm thinking that's coming from like turn of the century blues as well. Anyway, the whole album is fantastic, but to me, to spend the oh 8 9 minutes of just focusing on Motherless Child and Come Sunday, it will just really open your head and help you to appreciate um, just the absolute stunning beauty and glory that can be had in sensitive sensitive musicians really diving deep into the songs and making them into something glorious. I just the album is good, but again, Motherless Child and Come Sunday are just Olympian levels of jazz to me. So deeply affecting. Mm. Wow. Ken, I'm so glad you suggested that we listen to this album along with the Yardbirds
Okay.
because I never heard it before.
Okay.
Serious? Okay.
Okay.
Seriously,
Yeah,
All
all
right.
right.
All
All right.
right.
Yeah.
I'm an ignorant child.
You're ignorant. All right.
As opposed to motherless. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
heard it here, folks. He's ignorant. All right. Okay, Ken, your opinion on the album?
Yeah. Jim is right. This is basically this is a live album, and unlike Jim and you, Armando, I didn't have a lot of opportunity in my life to go to concerts just because of where I grew up. And if you love country music, there's plenty of opportunity, but not for anything else really. Um,
So you had
Okay.
both kinds of music,
yes, country and
country
western
and
and
Western.
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 Yes,
That's
thank
right.
you.
But
I
I
never
do
said it. I never said it, ladies and gentlemen.
the
They did.
I don't the but there are a lot of live albums that I absolutely adore, some not so much. I guess I'm very picky, um, I guess, on my live albums. And the good thing about jazz during this time is being live, they were usually recorded in very small venues. This album was recorded in the Bohemian Caverns nightclub in DC, which wasn't that large. We talked about in a previous video how much the audience reaction uh, enhanced Sinatra at the Sands, and
Yeah, we
Sinatra,
did. We
especially
did.
Sinatra's direct um, interacting with the audience. And this is too. It sounds like you're in, a very small venue, maybe even a large room in a house, and it's they're having a party basically.
Yeah.
I was a fan before I heard this album. I was a big fan of the Dobie Gray 94 original of the In Crowd, the song, and still love it to this day. And then I discovered this sometime in the 70s, late 70s, I think. It's like, whoa, that's not Dobie Gray, and that's okay because the energy and the swinging is just amazing on this whole album. And this is probably one of my all-time favorite jazz formats, a piano trio. Um, I like trumpet, not so much on saxophone and stuff like that. My piano is my favorite jazz instrument, so this is right down my wheel bag. And
Yeah.
so, and apparently other people liked it too because it did win a Grammy for Best Jazz Performance. So at least other musicians liked it too. And this album played a key role in bringing soul and jazz into the mainstream.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, it's not just for jazz aficionados anymore.
Okay.
Um, and again, like I said, it has a very intimate feel. Um, I could go through and list my favorite tracks off the album, but I'd basically be reading all of the tracks. It's just a good, solid, 10 out of 10 album for me. I love Ramsey Lewis's piano style. It's very melodic. Um, the chordal structures and the placement of the way he uses chords, I think, works so well. Um, it doesn't have a lot of flash and noodling, but it is incredibly, melodic and moving. And this
Mhm.
album, he's at the top of his game. I don't hear Ramsey Lewis in our conversations about jazz nearly often enough. Um, Motherless Child, you're right, Jim. It's just taking that piano and just showing how much emotion that you can play into something that's just, a felt hammer hitting a metal string,
Okay.
and how he's able to pull that off. And so yeah, if you're not familiar with this, I recommend um, going on YouTube or a streaming service, listen to Dobie Gray's version from '64, get that in your ear, and then play this album. And you'll see how the trio just took that fantastic song and just took it to another dimension. So, uh, unbelievable jazz album of '65. Um, I, I just think it's brilliant.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Um, I just to uh continue what you said about live albums and certain versions of songs. For me, there are a couple of albums where I heard the live version of a certain song, and to me that after hearing the live versions and then going back and listening to the studio versions, I was left feeling with the studio version something's missing. I'll give you two examples. When I first heard Queen Life Killers, and I heard the live version of Now I'm Here on side two. Now that version is 8 minutes long. It's a f uh, fast tempo, very spirited version. And then you have like, of course, Freddie Mercury with the give and take with the audience back and forth, the singing back and forth, right? Call and response. And when I heard the version of Now I'm Here on Sheer Heart Attack, a studio version, it's like, okay, it's a bit flat. Like I had to get used to it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So for me, the definitive version of Now I'm Here is on, as much as I love the studio version, the definitive version is on Live Killers for me.
Right.
Um, Even though Roger Taylor has said the only thing live on the album were the bass and the drums, but that's another issue altogether. We won't go there. Now, the second album was David Bowie's Stages or Stage, and
Mm-hmm.
I heard the live versions of Station to Station and Warsaw or Warsaw and TBC 15.
Hmm.
Okay, those live versions are so robust. I mean, like
Yeah.
so full of energy. I mean, you have Adrian Belew, Dennis Davis, Carlos Alomar, in his backup band. Hello. I mean, that kind of caliber of musicianship,
Hmm.
like unbelievable. And then when I went and heard the studio versions of those songs, it was just like, okay, I like it, but something is missing here,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
I got used to them. I love them now,
Hmm.
but it's also the audience participation that to me, if it's handled correctly and just right, enhances the recording to me. Again, I'm not one to gossip, so you didn't hear that from me. Um, that's just my 4 cents on this episode because I couldn't listen to the albums in time. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Sorry, Ken, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, with a lot of albums, I'm somewhat skeptical, um, because so many of them are not purely live.
Sure. Kiss.
And so it's like, Armando, like you've mentioned, you buy a live album, you want to hear the entire performance. Well, I want to hear what it really sounded like. And uh, and there's just so many cases that you find out years later how much dubbing and changes and studio magic was done on it. So it's like, well, you
Well,
know,
Yeah.
we're not gonna name names. Watch the screen.
no.
Um, but
but that's just me being a curmudgeon, probably.
Yeah. No,
Nah.
I get it. No, I get it. Uh, I have said in closing, I have said that I would like to hear a full live performance. Obviously, you know, produce it, make it sound proper as it was supposed to sound on the night of. But when you start editing and removing sections and just doctoring it, there's no point to it. There's no
Yeah,
point to it. If you're going to do that, fine. Keep your mouth shut about it. Don't
yep,
ruin the magic or the essence of what people
yep.
think that they're hearing. You know, but again, that's just my view. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us for album anniversaries, celebrating albums that were released in June and July of 1965. Please put down the comments on these albums, things that maybe uh, Ken and Jim missed, or maybe add to them, or maybe, maybe they missed the plot completely. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But again, we would like to get, your feedback on these albums as we do with every episode we do. So again, for Jim and Ken, otherwise known as Frick and Frack, I'm Armando Venditti, signing off. Please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I saw that, Jim. For anything that, to keep yourselves on top of any new content we've got coming up. So for Frick and Frack, I'm Armando Venditti signing off. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.